Hi everyone! Episode 51. I was going to do a recap episode as I had done for episodes 1 to 25, but I figure everyone just wants more of the rewrite itself, not another summary right now. Things are just getting way too interesting. We've caught up with all three teams following the reveal of the Sanbi Jinchuriki as they go on their separate war marches. I won't reveal who the Jinchuriki is here, just in case we have a brand new viewer clicking this video first. Last time we got to see the Gobi firsthand as it revealed the source of the fog hitting all of our Konoha 12. And I wasn't going to say this unless someone discovered it last episode, but the fog does in fact get weaker with distance, which is why there was bickering on the coastal team, but a battle to the death in the main army. Another thing that was pointed out, and is in fact true, is that Ino and Naruto seemed to be immune to the fog's effects. This was a result of a direct connection that the tailed beasts have. I've got a lot planned for today, so I hope everyone enjoys what's to come. On with the show. Grumbling as consciousness returns to him, Naruto shifts uncomfortably. He's lying on his belly on a stony surface. There's pain in his arms and he just can't feel his hands. He can't even tell whether he's opened his eyes because he's in absolute darkness. With effort, he rolls onto his butt in a sitting position. His hands have been forced open-palmed together and held in place. A unique kind of binding. Whoever took him has restrained him so that he can't perform jutsu. As he shuffles about, trying to get comfortable, his foot rubs against another person. Yelping from the scare, Naruto asks who else is in the cell with him. Sighing with relief, Sakura answers him. She and Ino are in the same cell with him. Naruto tries to feel his chest for the wound he had, but with his hands tightly bound, he simply cannot. He asks how long they've been awake, but due to the darkness, they've no idea how much time has passed. But also, due to their individual cautions, they didn't really speak to each other at first. Scrambling on his knees, Naruto tries to stand but ends up only smacking his head against the low ceiling of the cell. They reveal to him that their hands are bound as well. Naruto asks how Ino's in the cell with them and not Tenten. Ino voices her own confusion. The last thing she can remember is being overwhelmed by a crowd of fleeing villagers. She was carried up the coast a little ways, and just as she was freed from the masses, an avalanche came down on her. Ino thought she was just getting free from the chaos until all suddenly went black. Wincing at a goose egg on her head, Ino assumes a stray rock, or even an enemy ninja, smacked her and knocked her out. Sakura, unfortunately, has much less of a memory than Naruto had hoped for. Her last recollection was getting hit by the fog. She's covered in trivial wounds and torn clothes, but she has no idea how it happened. Naruto fills her in on the space between her loss of time and his own, but it still doesn't answer who would have taken them here, wherever here was. Naruto tells them there's little he can do to aid their escape, if they wish to do so. Without jutsu, there's little he can do. He can't even sense anyone nearby without putting a palm to the ground, and he's restrained right now. His hands are stuck together. Sakura reveals that she used one hand to do jutsu when fighting Neji. In the rush of the moment, she didn't even realize that she had done it. Kurenai had to tell her later of the feat. How few people in the world can even do that, notwithstanding. In this moment now, with both their hands tied, she also can't do anything. But maybe, if they can find something to break her binds, she could pull a miracle. Ino insists that Sakura is relying on too many things to line up just perfect for her plan. Instead, Naruto should use his shadow jutsu. Doubtlessly, it would be very strong in this absolute darkness, right? Naruto's immediately resistant to the idea, given the disdain the fox already has for him. He suggests if they're going to be utilizing beasts... Before he finishes his sentence, Sakura tackles him, finds his mouth, and holds a hand over it. Leaning in close, she whispers to him that he's a publicly known Jinchuriki, but very few others know about the other Jinchuriki. Before getting off of him, Sakura also smacks him lightly and tells him to be careful with his words. Smartening up, Naruto blushes in the darkness, but he's not embarrassed, folks. Sticking to his previous defense, he stutters a bit before repeating that he won't use the fox unless their lives are in danger. Ino suggests that their lives might actually be in danger. Shino is reaching around in complete darkness, trying to find the bag that's been removed from his back. That bag contained all of his chakra-rich bees. Without it, he can still function, but all that time in the Dreadlands packing in all that chakra, and now he can't utilize it? He initially found one other body. After some inspection, he realized it was a living person, and with some prodding, eventually it turned into Tenten as she woke up, confused. In their cage as well, quickly discovered afterward, was Rock Lee. By the time the other two have roused, Shino's already dispersed his bugs to discover where they are, and he's mapped out an intricate cave network that they're in. Groaning immediately, Tenten nearly cries as she realizes her Kiba blades are gone again. It's like she's cursed to never actually have them. Tenten, in her defeat, asks how she came to be with them, considering how far apart they were before. Maybe they know where the blades are. Rock Lee asks her what the last thing she remembers is, disappointed that he can't help her about those swords, and she says this great wall of fog came rolling towards them, and that was it. Her memory just stops. Settling into a comfortable position, Rock Lee recounts to Tenten how they were ambushed twice. Might Guy stayed behind to buy them time for an escape, but they just ended up ambushed by a large group of rock ninja. It was interesting to Rock Lee that they had somehow lifted the fog away and were unaffected by it. Shino proposes that maybe they've learned defensive mechanisms, what with having that beast in their country for so long. For all they know, it might just breathe steam every Monday that hits the whole country. Tenten asks then if the rock ninja took them prisoner. Shaking his head, Lee leans back against the cage and remembers the encounter. Neji had immediately taken point, doing his signature rotation but on an angle. The friction against the ground kicked up a heap of dirt, and while he slowed down from the spin, he was already weaving hand signs. Though their ambushers should have had the immediate advantage, half of them were forced on their back foot first by the rotation, and then by a quick earth spear jutsu that turned all the churned earth into raised spikes that shot toward them. And Rock Lee and Shino did what they could on the other side, but in the time it took Rock Lee to just assess his opponents, Neji had felled 3 of his own. Each time Lee looked back toward Neji, he was weaving around his still-standing earth spikes to dodge opponents while weaving his next jutsu. The fog around them suddenly turned into a deluge, a complete waterfall that knocked half the combatants off their feet. This was simply the efforts of Neji weaponizing his surroundings. And as the water fell, he leapt atop his earth spears and launched towards Lee and Shino. Just after the water had hit, he landed in time to let slip a spitfire of flame at the other combatants still recovering from the waterfall. Lee had barely touched one foe, as Neji was already moving on from his half of opponents to reverting to gentle palm. Activating his 8 trigrams, 64 palms in such a short-range scenario, Neji was able to disable 5 ninjas simultaneously. The 6th that had attempted to attack from behind caught a fist under their chin as Neji had sent them flying. Lee shakes his head in the darkness, finding his jaw drop all over again just from remembering the Hyuga Prodigy's flow from one opponent to the next. They were besieged by 12 ninja, and in the span of 30 seconds, Neji had alone reduced their number to 4. Shino remarks that if the Chunin exams were scored purely based on skill, Neji would have been guaranteed. He agrees wholeheartedly with Lee. He's never thought that someone their age could fight with such active wherewithal of their surroundings. Perhaps it's because Neji's a jerk, but Shino feels like he forgot how good Neji was since their academy days. He didn't even display anything new in his jutsu arsenal. It didn't seem like he needed anything new. But the remaining 4 must have been Jonin, because Shino's memory stops there. Nodding, again to himself in the pitch black, Rock Lee notes that his memory also stops there. Returning to the now, they wonder amongst themselves how they can break out of here. Rock Lee tells them he can definitely break out with just his legs, but he's still too heavy from his training weights. He's surprised that they didn't remove them when they carried him here, because it would have made him ultra heavy. Curiosity clearly showing in her voice, Tenten asks how heavy his weights are. He tells her they're about 750 pounds each right now, but Might Guy thinks he can go up to quadruple digits. Tenten's eyes unfocus as she thinks about the idea that he just walks around normally and even fights with those on. Shino gives a very short chuckle, shaking his head to himself that Might Guy was so absurd. While they wonder how to remove them with their hands tied, Shino points out that if Tenten was with them, then it stands to reason that Sakura, Naruto, and Neji were somewhere here as well, although his bugs haven't found anyone yet. As he says this, he stops mid-sentence, realizing that his bugs have found the mouth of the cave that leads outside. Tenten points out that Asuma was with them when all went black, so he might be with a party coming to rescue. She also asks Rock Lee if the weights can only be worn on the legs, or the arms as well. Lee tells her that actually arms are a yes, but because the muscles are smaller, you wouldn't be able to go as heavy. Shino reminds them that there's no one remotely nearby. That's bad news for their friends being here as well. But it's also good news because it can mean they can be noisy to escape. Ino wonders if Shikamaru and Sasuke are here as well in the caves. It would only make sense. Well, at least Sasuke, because he was just a few feet from her when the chaos erupted for them at the coast. The last thing she knows of Shikamaru is that he was with Kurenai and the other reliable Jonin. But why would the Rock take random kids as prisoner? Sakura looks between the two Jinchuriki and realizes that's exactly it. She tells them in a hushed whisper that they may have found out that the Jinchuriki was someone from their own age group. Ino squeezes Sakura's hand in worry, but Sakura's not sure how much info they even have about Ino. She successfully kept that secret from her closest friends for her whole life. They might know Naruto's the Jinchuriki, but they wouldn't necessarily know what he looks like. Ino uses the mention to press Naruto further on getting the fox to work with them, but Naruto has never known how to even go about that. In a whisper herself, Ino tells him that she just has to think and her beast can hear her. Her dad told her that the beasts see and hear everything that the host does. If that's true, then the fox knows exactly the situation Naruto's in right now. Naruto rolls his eyes and tells her that the fox never helps him unless his life is in danger, an event that just happened before he passed out. He agrees that the fox can hear him, but it never answers him when he wants it to. Ino withholds that her beast acts the same way towards her, because she needs Naruto to have the confidence right now. They might need to act on violence, and the fox was far more volatile than the three-tailed turtle that she had. Ino encourages him to just sit quietly and try to focus on his thoughts. He needs to try and find the tunnel that connects him to the fox, metaphorically speaking. Unfortunately, it's easy for Ino. She can practically feel her constant connection, and it makes it difficult to translate for Naruto to utilize the tactic. Grumbling at the ask, Naruto crosses his arms and leans against a wall to listen quietly. They sit in complete silence for just a few moments before Naruto suddenly complains that nothing's happening. Sakura tells him to shut up and just keep trying. Naruto knows it's not working, but to appease the girls' request, he just stays quiet. In the silence, his mind wanders and thinks about the day he went to the Uchiha neighborhood with his dad. It was like any other day, except that today, he was spending his time at the Uchiha house. Sasuke was there, outside to greet him and the Hokage, as was Itachi, Sasuke's older brother. But their dad wasn't there, and Naruto had a hard time remembering what he looked like. He was always so busy, it's rare to see him. While his dad spoke to Itachi, Naruto walked up to a young Sasuke and waved hello. Sasuke was so different back then, so animated, as a kid his age came to visit. While Sasuke described that they might go shuriken training with his big brother, Naruto remembers patting his dog standing beside him, leaning into his leg. In retrospect, it struck Naruto odd that his dad had him bring the dog along to see the Uchiha as well. His face scrunches as Naruto tries to remember the name of this dog. He wonders why the name escapes him. In fact, he can't even remember what happened to that dog. Maybe he was too young to understand death and the dog just vanished from his memory. His dad knelt down at the dog's other side and made sure Naruto would behave while he was away before vanishing into thin air. He remembers Itachi went back inside after the Hokage left, leaving the door open for Sasuke and Naruto to follow. But before they entered the house, some other Uchiha kids wandered past and spat insults at Sasuke. Naruto couldn't remember exactly what they said, but they were mean. Very, very mean. And the insults stopped dead in their tracks when Itachi emerged again from the house, and his very presence scared the kids away. They would go on to enter the house and go through to the backyard to practice weapon training. Naruto remembers being worried about his dog as he laid below the target they were aiming at. But for some reason that just wasn't enough to stay his hand as he also threw the tools. It was a thin dog, and pretty agile too. Every time one of their tools missed their mark and landed near the dog, he'd pounce out of the way to easily dodge. Itachi eventually came out to watch them, which excited Sasuke to no end. While Naruto threw with all of his might to get the kunai to its mark, Itachi knelt beside him and flicked his wrist to land a kunai much deeper in the target. He can't even remember the words Itachi told him and Sasuke, but it fundamentally changed how he handled kunai from then on. Whenever Itachi came close to Naruto, his dog would get between them, as if to protect him. Sniffing, in present time, Naruto shakes his head as he struggles further to remember the dog's name. How did he forget about his only childhood pet? Itachi ignored the dog completely, and in fact, taking a deep breath suddenly, Naruto realizes why he can't remember the dog's name. It was an imaginary friend. Everyone ignored it, and it only interacted with him. Of course. Yes, now it's all coming back. Why would they worry about hitting an animal that wasn't even there? Yes, and it wasn't even a dog. Naruto chuckles as the memory pieces together properly now. It was a fox. Screaming in agony, the fox fights wildly against the enslavement Madara Uchiha has forced upon it. Writhing in its own skin, the fox felt control of its own limbs get wrenched away, and even its wealth of chakra get connected with Madara. Now a thrall, a complete slave, totally mind-controlled, the fox is turned towards Hashirama Senju as the two greatest ninja of their time engage in brutal combat. Neither had a care in the world for the harm that befell the fox, and Naruto felt every scratch, unable to recoil from any of the pain, a prisoner in his own mind. Enslavement inside a host was better than being completely robbed of one's will. The memory of the Uchiha home has totally melted away and replaced with a battle of total savagery. Unable to combat the power of the eternal Mangekyo, the fox and Naruto together watch and cringe in agony as the two most powerful ninja kill each other. Over time, the fox gets more and more injured. The wounds heal themselves instantly, but the exhaustive use of chakra starts to diminish the fox's form, unable to regenerate as fast as it's being used up. Hashirama staggers as he gets ever closer to the fox, and Madara is nearly too big to ride it now. Another surge of chakra gets stolen from the fox as Madara tries a last-ditch attack to take down Hashirama. The Senju clan head tanks the hit, perhaps too tired to move. The fox has shrunken from exhaustion, enough now that it's smaller than the two humans beside, but still under the control of Madara. Falling into each other, both ninja grumble as their struggle meets its end, and they collapse onto the fox, crushing it. Snapping back to reality, Naruto pulls in a sharp breath as he realizes what he just witnessed. That's been happening more and more lately. Why did he have the fox as an imaginary friend when he was a kid? Can all Uchiha control the fox like that? The fox growls at him to keep his mind to himself, and in the moment, Naruto asks the fox for help to escape their prison. The fox tells him that he's so weak. Of course he's going to ask for help. Every step of the way in his miserable life, he just keeps asking for help. Panting from the effort to maintain his mental connection with the fox, Naruto asks the fox what it wants. "Freedom," the fox tells him. Naruto says in return that if he hates being inside Naruto so much, then Naruto will search for a way to release the fox that won't kill them both. The fox laughs that Naruto lacks the conviction and ability to accomplish such a thing before pulling away and severing their connection. Sighing, Naruto shakes his head in the blackness and tells the girls that it didn't work. The cage door suddenly creaks open, but there's no one nearby that could have opened it. Calling it the luck of the devil, Naruto climbs out to stretch his legs. Ino follows after him, her face scrunched in the darkness, wondering if the gate was open the whole time, and if it was they who were the idiots for not testing it. Sakura raises an eyebrow in Naruto's general direction, sure that the fox helped, whether Naruto knew it or not. Sniffing again, Naruto tells them that it smells cooler in one direction than the other. Laughing, Sakura asks if he's suddenly become a bloodhound, but she and Ino follow after him regardless. Shino tells Lee and Tenten that while there's no one alive nearby, there are dozens of cages lining the walls of the room they're in. But the walls themselves and the ceiling are rugged. Shino doesn't think they've been using this cave for very long. It might just be a temporary hideout before they're moved to a more permanent prison. Tenten and Shino team up to use their tied hands to remove Rock Lee's weights. Easier said than done. Their hands have been tied together tightly, as if they were praying, creating extremely limited mobility. Shino's bugs could potentially chew through their restraints, but he notes that they feel different than ropes. They might be designed specifically for ninja hostages and have some sort of chakra-draining quality. Shino's operating only off the worst-case scenario and wants to keep his bugs primed for an emergency. Through persistence, they eventually manage to rip the weights off and they clap to the stone floor like extremely powerful magnets snapping together. There's no bounce. Tenten has a fleeting thought of how much it would have hurt if they had fallen on her fingers. But she's interrupted by Rock Lee's laughter at how light it immediately made the bottom half of his body feel. He'd gone with weight for so long that he'd forgotten the feeling of being without. Easily smashing the gate open, Rock Lee leaps out and straightens. With his newfound mobility, Rock Lee closes his eyes and focuses all of his attention into one spot. He only grunts quietly as he enters into the first gate. But he needs to reach the second gate in order to destroy the bindings on their hands. Might Guy always told him that the gates become sequentially easier to unlock as you go, but if you rush it, you might lose the proper focus and activate it incorrectly. The second gate, if opened incorrectly, can cause catastrophic damage to his muscles, so he needs to make sure that he maintains focus as his body transitions to the second gate. The restraints suddenly feel delicate, and it takes minimal effort for Lee to pull his hands free and tear them to pieces. Finding his way to Shino and Tenten, he tears their bindings free as well. He tells them that this newfound strength won't last forever. If he needs to use this strength against guards outside, then they'd better get going now. Crouching silently amongst some boulders, Asuma peers into the rock ninja encampment that holds his Chunin. Though there are very few trees here, there is a lot of rubble and a peppering of hundreds of caves and holes in the ground. It would be impossible for any invader to map out all of these caves in a reasonable time. It was challenging enough to chase them through the fog, but one of their members maintained some sort of jutsu that kept the fog at bay. As long as Asuma stayed close enough to that man, he was able to escape the fog's madness. Sitting around a bonfire, there are no less than 20 ninja that stand between them and their captured pupils. Kurenai kneels beside him, having found him in her own pursuit of the men who took her students. Shikamaru was safe, but left behind. Convening with Orochimaru before going on to retrieve the captured kids, the Sannin ordered that Shikamaru stay with him. Though Shikamaru wanted to go help rescue his friends, Orochimaru had already figured out what the Rock Ninja were doing and told them it was safest for Shikamaru to stay with him now. Since the attack on Konoha, word likely got out that they had a second Jinchuriki. Of course people would hunt that one down, but they failed to take Shikamaru. So if he stays with Orochimaru and the enemies see this, they might think that the highest level of protection detail for one lone genin is indication enough that that one genin is the Jinchuriki. The confusion fog had lifted, but the Leaf forces had suffered terrible losses. More than half of their forces were injured, and many more were slain due to friendly fire. There were so many sudden injuries that Tsunade became inundated with medical aid, negating any option for having her as reinforcements for Orochimaru. As things looked, it would be a lone Sannin assaulting Iwa. An explosion of rock on the other side of the encampment alerts the Jonin teachers and all of the enemy shinobi to some of their prisoners breaking free. Rock Lee had busted through a wall with his second gate still released, launching rubble everywhere. As the rock ninja scrambled to pin down their escapees, Asuma and Kurenai use this perfect opportunity. Launching from the bushes to take down as many as they can, they actually catch many by surprise, successfully getting the jump on 8 ninja and landing easy takedowns. They're soon after discovered, dividing the rock ninja into 2 groups. Bracing themselves now for an actual fight, Asuma and Kurenai are dismayed when another large corps of rock ninja emerge from several cave networks to cover and block their escape. As Asuma and Kurenai fight back to back to fend off their opponents, the Konoha 6 reunite on the other side of the camp. Emerging from a nearby cave, Naruto catches the attention of Rock Lee and both groups converge. But Rock Lee's bombastic escape when their exit was blocked alerted everyone possible. When Jonin attempted to descend upon them, Lee leaps to their defense before his second gate vanishes altogether. Naruto has lost his kunai somewhere on the battlefield before, so he can no longer use Flying Raijin without abandoning his teams and flying who knows how far to their location. Ninja are literally sent flying when they clash with Rock Lee as he lands his fast and powerful kicks. Pointing into the fray, Tenten hops excitedly that some idiot has her Kiba blades. She winces as she points, looking down and seeing, now in the broad daylight, that she has dried blood all down her side. The pain is fairly minimal, but damage is pretty obvious. Someone stabbed her. Forgetting the wound, Tenten tells the group that they just need to get to that person with the Kiba blades. Rock Lee nods in that ninja's direction, stopping his bedlam for a moment to concentrate, successfully slipping into the third gate. With the third gate, he's got enhanced speed, but more importantly has expanded the time limit on using the gates. The third gate is the furthest he's ever been able to go so far, but it should be more than enough to get to the ninja with the Kiba blades. Shino points out that Kurenai and Asuma are in the crowd of ninja further up. Sakura shouts that they need to get to their teachers who seem to have it much worse than they do right now. She turns to Naruto and tells him to get the Fox's help. 2 Jonin, 4 Chunin, and 2 Genin against a mix of over 20 rock ninja were terrible odds. But they do have 2 Jinchuriki that could dramatically alter their fate right now if Naruto could just talk to his beast. Despite Shino's bugs forming a protective ring around them and Rock Lee launching ninja all over the place, it's clear that they're slowly being overwhelmed. They struggled to get closer to their Jonin mentors, and it only took 1 ninja to break through their defenses and land a kunai into Tenten's shoulder. A second injury Tenten feels at this time, and screams for help, summoning Naruto to body check the man off of her. As Naruto mercilessly showers the ninja with fists, he angrily reaches inside for an answer from the fox. He gives the fox permission to just take control. They clearly aren't in control right now, and they need to survive this. But instead of even insulting Naruto, the fox withdraws further and rejects him altogether, brandishing disgust for Naruto's cowardice. As they flounder in frustration at their overwhelming odds, they hear a holler of desperation from the Jonin as Kurenai falls and Asuma catches her in his arms. Sakura shivers as she stares helplessly at the woman who taught her genjutsu, that she might be in mortal danger. Shino redirects his bugs into the shape of an offensive spear rather than a defensive ring, as his emotions get the better of him. But the Rock Ninja now have a clean opening to collapse onto the kids. Slipping suddenly in mud, the swarming ninja struggle to maintain their footing. Water pools to their ankles, falling down the many holes as it surges forth. Falling to her knees, Ino gurgles as if there's water in her own throat before being cloaked entirely in an armor of water. The stress of their situation has awakened the Sanbi. And that's the end of today's episode. This has to be my longest episode in quite a while. If you enjoyed the episode and somehow haven't subscribed after 51 episodes, what are you doing? Click that subscribe! Looks like we're going to see some Sanbi action. Also, Naruto's memory morphing into the Ninetales' memory was fun, as well as a cameo from past Itachi. Due to the chaos of war, I intentionally kept a lot of what happened kind of ambiguous, such as the enemy numbers. They had a lot of hiding spots, and though it was sort of reckless for Asuma and Kurenai to leap out, it was probably their best opportunity. I think in the heat of a war, where almost all combatants are in melee range, things can get confusing fast. So the idea of having an infinite flow of enemies pouring in is meant to help illustrate that. There aren't infinite enemies, but our characters are simply getting overwhelmed. And if Asuma and Kurenai were on the back leg, I'm not sure Asuma has any time to hold her. This might be the start of a farewell to our Halcyon days. Also, the note about Lee's leg weights. I did a little bit of research on that, and it turns out Kishimoto's never come right out and revealed it. But thankfully, every fanbase has a couple ultra nerds. Someone figured out that, based on the distance and speed that the weights dropped when Lee removed them during the tuning exams, and the amount of damage they did to the floor, they were probably about 4,500 kilograms. And in pounds, it's over 9,000! Imagine if Kishimoto actually did plan that. That would actually be legitimately genius. I've got no reason to doubt that math, but it does seem a little bit high for my version of Rock Lee so far. Maybe one day, but he's still relatively fresh with weighted training, so he has to start at a smaller caliber. That's all for now. The sky's the limit.